name is Hitendra Chaturvedi, and I'm a professor at the W.P. Carey School of Business, Supply Chain Management. And this is the second interview in the video series on how research can be made practical for the practitioner and the industry. What are the key takeaways? So today, I am absolutely honored to have Anand Nair, professor from Michigan State University Supply Chain Management. Actually, he's an endowed professor, Eli Broad, and he has written a paper around the efficacy of manufacturing and process, and in the time of, how do I put it, economic recessions, but I believe it also can apply to anything extraneous, a big upheaval, something similar to a recession. It could be applied to both. So it's very opportune because we are in the middle of a pandemic that has created humongous challenges for the industry and the supply chain. And so it is perfect timing. So welcome, Anand, and correct me if I have misspelled your name or, sorry, mispronounced your name.
No, thank you, Hitendra. I think you've said exactly rightly. I mean, my name is Anand, and I would have expected you to pronounce it correctly, and so there's no mistake in that.
No, thank you, Anand. And my first question is, and I have gone through your paper, and my first question is that, and we are talking about coronavirus. So, would you consider the pandemic as a macroeconomic factor? And I talk to a lot of industries and a lot of companies, and I say, are you implementing a risk management plan? And I will tell you that over 90% of these companies are saying yes to it. So my question to you is, when I look at your research with the GMRG data, would you consider your study to be a part of a holistic risk management plan? Do you see as fitting into that risk management plan?
Yeah, so I mean, clearly risk management is a very important area that a lot of companies are going to focus on going forward. And to a great extent, the findings that we have in our study could be important for companies to think about when they are structuring their risk management plan, the continuity plan. In fact, I'm going to teach this exact topic tomorrow to executive MBAs. But our study was really focused on the context of recession that was presented by the financial meltdown, 2008 to 2012. And what we were interested in was to understand that there are certain practices that we consider really important practices from operations and supply chain point of view for organizations to do well. For example, manufacturing strategy alignment, which is the alignment of manufacturing strategy with the corporate strategy, or process integration. These are sort of things which companies should be doing to improve their cost, quality, delivery, flexibility. And the question that we wanted to ask was that, do these practices provide the kind of benefit even when we are going through a recessionary period? And we don't have an answer to that, because we always have looked at these practices more from a normal, so-called normal environment. So we saw that in the recession, there were mixed outcomes. Some manufacturing plants were dealing very well with uncertainty and others were closing down. And hence what we did was we examined the performance data from this recessionary period for 514 manufacturers from 21 countries spanning 21 industries spanning 14 countries. And we wanted to compare how manufacturing strategy alignment performed with respect to these performance measures of cost, quality, delivery, and flexibility, and how process integration performed with those same performance measures. And we looked at these countries with differential GDP effects. They had a different sort of effect in terms of their GDPs coming down during that period. And hence we had examples of companies that were not affected as much versus countries that were affected much more. Now, strategic alignment and process integration are kinds of practices where a lot of companies are complementing them. So both of them can actually impact each other. But at the same time, they also have their standalone impact and scope. Companies know that when you're doing manufacturing strategy alignment, it's all about having that common vision between the manufacturing strategy as a functional strategy and the corporate strategy, which is the overall organizational goal. And that alignment many times is not there. Many companies are still struggling to create that alignment. But a lot of companies have made quite a bit of progress in that particular direction. On the other hand, process integration relates more with the ability to coordinate internally as well as with suppliers and customers. So you have to implement scheduling processes. You have to implement the required integrational processes. Automation, perhaps, many times might be very important for ensuring that there is information flow happening. So it's a very different sort of things that you will have to do, which can inform the overall strategy alignment, but has its own independent effect. So we wanted to see if we were to have companies which have very strong manufacturing strategy alignment, and obviously there's a range in that manufacturing strategy alignment. And likewise, we have companies with a range of process integration abilities. And we examined these companies and their effect on performance during the recessionary period. How much were they impacted based on these practices? And we found that during recession, the marginal effect of manufacturing strategy alignment on quality performance actually decreased. And it did not show too much of a performance benefit either on other performance measures like cost, flexibility, delivery. On the other hand, process integration reduced cost. Your cost performance was adversely impacted because you are investing quite a bit in this process integration. It's an expense which companies have to bear during recession. A lot more information flow will be needed at that time to coordinate. But the benefit was that they were able to gain better delivery performance, better quality performance, and better flexibility performance. So we found that while manufacturing strategy alignment was not able to deliver the promise during that time, but process integration did provide that benefit. So overall, we found this is an important finding, because if companies are thinking about their risk management plan or business continuity plan, they'll have to think about how they will structure these practices in that plan.
Yeah.
And how will they assess these practices eventually after a recession comes about?
Yeah. No, thank you. And the other question that came to my mind was, a lot of the things that you're just talking about, they are, we're dealing with macroeconomic factors. So if I'm the warehouse manager of a large company, and what can I do? Because I'm so busy with my day-to-day activities. My day is completely full. People management, change management, labor issues, production issues, inventory issues. Is your audience more the chief C-level, chief operating officer, chief procurement officer level folks? Or is there a lesson in it for warehouse manager like me, who's got his hands full in day-to-day operation and don't even have a minute to think about macroeconomic factors?
Yeah, so our study was really focused on manufacturing plants. So the direct implication of our study will more likely relate to plant managers. But the general implication that we have could potentially be extended to any other supply chain area. We could consider warehouse, for example, as a supply chain area more towards the logistics end, where the functional manager is still striving to align the functional strategy with the overall corporate strategy. They still have to find a way in which that alignment can occur. So whenever we have those circumstances where companies are trying to align that top end strategy and the functional strategy, and wherever there is a function where they rely on this fair degree of process integration to be able to accomplish what they have to do, which happens in logistics and warehouse. In those circumstances also, I think these managers will find the implications of this study useful when they are debating between alignment versus integration, and how they will evaluate it when there's a recession, all those things. Yep.
So I will share with you a common challenge. So let's say it's a recessionary times. Let's say the stresses are pretty bad. I'm more concerned about my job loss or a loss of job of my team members. At that moment, when I'm balancing my livelihood, what would you advise me? Why should I care about some of the process integration macroeconomic factors when I'm actually worried about my team's job, my own job, recession? I'm hearing rumors that my plant is going to get closed, my warehouse is going to be closed, business is not coming in. Give me some, how do I say it, motivation to say that, you know what, this is something important that you need to look at because this is going to help you.
Yeah, so again, the areas that we focused on in our study, which is manufacturing strategy alignment and process integration.
Yeah.
These are the activities and the practices that create an environment. They create an infrastructure for managing day-to-day operational challenges. right? So our study really is aimed at those at higher levels of organizational decision making,
Okay.
so that they can give these aspects of alignment and integration further consideration. They need to account for potential macroeconomic risk while thinking about these kinds of infrastructural elements, because in the end, people who are actually on the ground working on operational matters on a day-to-day basis will be influenced by this environment, this overarching context
Yeah.
that is being set up, because decisions will be made constrained by those alignment issues, constrained by those process integration issues. So if we
Yeah.
have already taken decisions in the past, which now creates that context, it's better to incorporate these kinds of learnings in those decisions so that going forward, those operators can fulfill their day-to-day activities even during macroeconomic downturns
Yeah.
in such a way that it really contributes towards a positive firm outcome.
So I guess what you're saying is process integration and manufacturing strategy is more like hygiene, that they should
Absolutely.
be thinking about in good days so that when bad days are coming, they are better prepared to weather the storm. And it's more of a risk mitigation strategy,
Mhm.
or like an insurance strategy, or I call it hygiene. Am I reading it right? So the
Absolutely. Yeah.
CEOs, go ahead, please.
Yeah, this is absolutely a right way of thinking about it, right? It's like an infrastructure, it's like a context, it's like an hygiene factor, which is set by top decision makers, but it has influence going all the way down to everyone on the shop floor, to warehouse managers, to service
Yeah.
providers and others. So it has impact on everybody. So these decisions really play a very big role in the end when company actually has to perform its duties and
Yes,
provide
it's
customers.
more proactive. You're saying that if you're reactive at something like this is not going to yield the results that you're
It
looking
is not.
for.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
so if let's say I'm the chief operating officer or the senior exec in one of these companies, and if I were to ask you, saying, Anand, in your entire study, if you were to give me three takeaways, and that I can take it to my CEO and I can distill it to my plant manager, my warehouse manager, so that it's part of their daily discipline, daily hygiene, what would those three things be?
Yeah, I think number one, overly emphasizing the internal manufacturing alignment um, practices during recession could be counterproductive. I mean, in general, companies should think about alignment and all that, but during recession, it's important to ensure that we're not going overboard in terms of aligning the internal requirements with the overall strategy, because that strategy is changing as we
Mm.
speak during recession, because there's a lot of turmoil and there's a lot of external environmental pressure which makes company change the course on a day-to-day basis. And if we are trying to get to that alignment between function and the corporate strategy, it sort of misses that bigger picture of what exactly at that point in time the need of the hour is. So I guess that is one very important thing, that too much focus on internal alignment could lead firms to go far away from the requirements of the market. And that is one thing which chief operating officers, chief executive officers should be aware of. Number two, supply and operations managers might hesitate to support process integration during these recessionary periods, or even before, because there is cost involved with
Yeah.
coordination efforts with suppliers and customers, internal coordination, sometimes automation. However, the findings of our study highlight that process integration exerts a positive effect on all dimensions but cost when there is recession. And actually, it also exerts positive effect in all performance measures, which is done by other studies also when there's no recession. So process integration is a great thing to happen if we can really accomplish that. So firms should persevere in their efforts towards integration, because in the long run, it actually is going to deliver the kind of promise it has been showing in both normal and recessionary environment. Number three, managers should consider fine-tuning their evaluation and assessments of operational practices during recession. Because if we are going to assess, okay, our quality performance is going down, and what is going on, we need to really improve our manufacturing strategy alignment even a little more, because of that reduction in performance actually are going in the wrong direction, because it's expected because of that alignment at that point in time. At least that's what our results are showing. Some of the well-established operational practices may show some negative performance during these times. So it is not necessary that just because there was a negative performance during that recessionary time, you should stop the door for that particular practice in the long run. You still want to do it, but you should be cautionary in terms of how you're evaluating it during that time. You need to be careful about taking any drastic step of changing the overall direction just because you started seeing some results, which is in the other way around. So that's what I would say. These are the three key sort of takeaways from our study.
Fantastic. I think that's great. So in a nutshell, what you're basically saying is try to use this more like do things of process integration and manufacturing strategy in anticipation that recession will come, and
Absolutely.
you're doing stuff beforehand to prepare for it. But the second thing that you're also saying is that your measures should be also looked at during the recession time, and correct me if I'm wrong, so that'll align it with your fine-tuning your measures, performance measures, and so on and so forth. And they have shown to yield good results. And the third thing, actually, what I heard you say is there's process integration, whether it's recession time or non-recession time, don't have a negative impact. And
except for the cost. Cost is one area where you see some negative impact during recession, but you should expect it.
And that's a decision that senior execs will have to make. If somebody comes back and says the process integration, this is recession time, it's going to hurt us. You have data to prove that other than a little bit of a cost, it is actually going to help.
Quality, delivery, flexibility. Yeah,
that is correct. But no, this is fantastic. It's like the whole idea of taking this amazing research and applying to day-to-day operation will be extremely valuable to some of the people that we end up talking to. So Anand, this has been fantastic. Thank you very much for taking out the time.
Thank you, Hitendra. It was a pleasure.
Yeah.